Hello everyone, I'm Ella Peterson. This is
Brogan Sire.
I'm Chloe Hatz, and our project is DispenseRight EDU, a collaboration with the SDC project. So SDSU strives to have a state-of-the-art simulation lab that revolutionizes the way students learn from managing complex healthcare scenarios. This project aims to upgrade SDSU college of nursing medication carts with physical dividers and digital guidance to better prepare nursing students with real clinical. So at the beginning of last semester, we were presented with their old system, which is their medication carts. The two at the bottom that you can see are the medication carts here at the Brookings Simulation Lab. We also have carts in Rapid City, 2 in Rapid City and 2 in Sioux Falls that we're working on. As you can see in these pictures, they're very disorganized. There's medications on top of the carts, and we really see that they're not using these carts at all. I'll play that video. And this video kind of shows just the simple way that they use them. Drawers they open, no dividers, medications are simply thrown into these bins, and students have to search through them. So there's no lack of using technology in these. They're very old, kind of just sit in the corner of the same thing. So the main motivator for this project is the impact of medication errors. The World Health Organization estimates that 1.3 million injuries per year happen because of medication errors in a clinical setting. And in the US alone, at least 1 death per day occurs. It's also estimated that half, 650,000 of these errors are preventable. We want to make sure that we are preparing our students. Building off of that, like, why does this matter to SDC? Why does this matter to our nursing department? One of our big things is that currently they're not using safe practices. It's not what you're going to see in your clinical applications. So for graduating, they're going to be using a whole different system. They're not going to have any of really like the same concepts even once they go into like hospitals. So with that, we're trying to make those safe practices, make it more applicable, and kind of follow those same concepts, as we don't want our students to learn something wrong first and then have to relearn it later, which is much harder. Whereas if you learn the correct thing first, it's a lot easier and it's a lot simpler for you. With that, that will increase our time productivity. And we'll touch on that a little bit more with our time study. But currently our students take a lot of time just trying to find the medications they need, and it's wasting a lot of time where they could be doing more in lab. And it's left our lab techs to teach those labs to have to kind of adjust their labs just to factor in enough time for them to find those medications where they could be doing something else. And then with that, having something that's more state-of-the-art, matching our modernized systems is a little bit better with recruiting. When you're bringing in students and you're like, hey, here's our med cart in our simulation lab, and it looks like a complete mess. It's not necessarily the ideal image you want to give people. And it's harder to kind of get a feel for it. Whereas with us, we would make that look more modernized, and it just kind of helps with that recruiting then. With that, it also helps with our employer confidence. When our students are learning the correct thing, they know the correct concepts, and then they're moving into their jobs after college. Employers around here and that they're going to work for are going to be very happy knowing that they don't have to reteach something to this student. Instead, they can just make sure they know how to use it properly, and they're already going to know those concepts, and they don't have to break bad habits, anything like that, which also helps expand our program. We're able to kind of outreach for and show how we have solutions for these issues to match our older technology and make it more modern, especially with costs. And seeing with those costs, we obviously want to have donors that help fund projects like our project, and having more projects that they continue to make modernized really shows our donors that they are working to bring our jobs up to an even higher degree that they already are, and it helps bring in some more funding. Going off of that, we have our decision-making matrix here. So we kind of looked at a couple different systems. We had the old system, so the one that we saw last semester when we got lab. And it ranked, it got like a 44 out of 100, so it's not very hot. It wasn't doing the best. But then we looked at an ideal system, and we'll touch on that in the next slide. But an ideal system is going to be a little bit higher than what our system is, which is 91. And some of the reasons for that is some of our security concerns and also some of like the access to it. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that now. So this is an ideal system. So this is a Pyxis med station, which is what you would see at Avera and Sioux Falls. With that, the cart is going to have full cart itself, and then you can see a drawer on the right there. With that drawer, it auto opens when you select the medication you're looking for, and then it also auto opens a bin that you can then grab only that specific medication. You don't have access to the rest of the meds. Because the nursing department does want to utilize the same carts they have, we're unable to replicate this. So we do lose that aspect, but we will be looking into it, or not looking into, we've gone into organization systems that fully label those. So it's easier to locate your meds, so that way you aren't grabbing the wrong one accidentally. But going off of that, these carts are going to cost quite a bit more. We're looking at $30,000 plus, whereas what we're doing is we are just retrofitting what we already have for virtually no price at all. And that really helps our nursing department save money, be able to put that in other things where maybe they are going to have to spend money to update something. And then with that, there's also barcode scanning, and there's a computer connected to that cart. That computer is going to have full access to your medical records, and our nurses could then go there, select the patient, then that's how we get the med, which is what we also want to simulate with an iPad app. So what we actually need, as I've kind of touched on, is this organization system. We need something that is easy to replicate, especially when we have lots of different carts in Brookings, Sioux Falls, and Rapid City. Not a single cart is the same, so they're all a little different, which makes it a little bit hard to introduce one standardized system. So instead, we tried to make something that's modular. So you kind of have your organization here, but then it can be put into, say, a drawer, where you can have different compartments within that drawer. And with that, that just makes it a little bit easier for us students to implement, but then also for our staff to continue as they maybe get different medications and they need to change those. They're easily able to change those organization systems. And Brogan's going to touch on that in a little bit with our apps as well, and how you can change those. But this is kind of what that new system looks without the app. It's using all of the drawers, which they currently did not have. And with that, when those drawers aren't fully filled, those little bins right in the right side actually slide side to side. So if you don't have 5 bins in there, they're going to wiggle side to side. Your meds get chipped. It messes up your meds. So filling the cart was one of our main things, making sure that all the bins are there. But then also that includes our storage, or increases our storage. As when we have those meds sitting on top, that is not what you're going to see. So making sure we're actually storing those meds properly and not just getting them out in the open or on a countertop.
Yeah, so as we get into the iPad implementation into the nursing simulation, what they're using right now is a software called ATI. So ATI is keeping track of login information, all student information in that sense. And then as they progress, they're going through the patient and the medical administration record of that patient. So our job is to implement the iPad so that as they're working through ATI, all they have to do is go over to the med card, search up the medication, find the location, and then bring it back. And then ATI keeps track of the barcode scanning and all that kind of stuff. So if you want to walk through it here, as the student would come to the iPad, it'd search the medication, find it on this list or search it up, and then go ahead and retrieve it and bring it back to the patient. Want to go to this one? So another part of what we were doing is we have to have a versatile platform because we have 3 different locations. We have Sioux Falls, Rapid City, and Brookings. So part of that is we need to implement an instructor user interface on this app to ensure that not only can they structure the iPad to suit whatever lab they're going to be teaching, but also we're going to have a variable med card per location, right? So as they're going through this, if you play the video, please. You're just going to click the instructor mode, and then from here, they're going to be able to make the adjustments that they need. They can go ahead and add, edit, or delete, and that should cover everything they would need per location. And then here, this is the display of all the medication that they gave us. So even though each lab is going to have different meds that they go through and use, they're going to have the entire list here and make it kind of seamless when it comes to prepping the lab, making sure it's easy for the nursing students. And if we want to go to the requirements, now, when we first got this prompt from our advisor, she said, no data collection, no login, run offline so that we don't have to worry about a database or an API, and then simple. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if you're looking at ATI, we could have done the entire ATI platform on the iPad itself, but given these requirements and restrictions that we'll get into later, now we just break it down into what we have right now, where it's only search medication and retrieval.
Yeah, moving into testing, we chose a time study to figure out how our new system could improve the old system. So we started with really defining what the old system was, how it worked, how it didn't work, any safety concerns that we have with it, the learning impacts for the students, how the performance of the cart affected safety in the simulation. And then finally we got feedback from the nursing students and it. Some of the observations that we saw were, you can see in the top picture, organization was not based on a clinical setting, it was simply based on simulation. The students went to the cart, grabbed an entire bin and brought it back to their workstation, where they would dump it out, search for the med individually, based on what their computer said they needed, find it at some point. They sometimes got lucky if they could find it right away. They sometimes were confused because they thought they didn't even have it in their bin. Time management was poor, it's disorganized, very misleading. We saw a lot of students kind of looking around the room, really confused, and missing the whole point of what their simulation is for. Some of our results, we saw our average time go from around 7.5 seconds to 1.5 seconds, 6 seconds decreased, and then our efficiency and time reduction, we saw a time reduction of 76% and the efficiency gain of 100%. So if this simulation took them around 10 minutes, we're estimating it will not take them 2 minutes. So with this extra time saving class, they could use it to introduce extra labs into the curriculum, allow instructors to spend more time explaining the purpose of the simulation, and provide students time to run the medical simulations 4 times. And then here I have 2 videos of me mocking up the old system proposed versus the proposed system. The old system in this, from last semester to this semester, they actually implemented the organizational system that we have proposed. So it's a little quicker than it should be. But as you can see in their old system, they have a list of medications that they have to search through to find the location. They have to look back at their computer, make sure they have the right one, search through bins, make sure they're in the right bin, keeping their finger on there, compared to our app where they simply find it, press it, take it. When we were in there watching the people, they were very confused and looking at 3 different screens, and it was very.
Now, limitations, I kind of briefed this earlier with IT and everything, but the system will not lock like Pixel's machine. So real scenario in nursing center, or excuse me, a hospital, you're gonna have that med card, the screen, the patient right there that you scan them in, and then from there, once you know what medication they need, it should just pop open for you and unlock. That was something that with the med card we were given, we weren't able to simulate that. And with IT restrictions currently blocking our app from being used on student iPads, we weren't actually able to do a real iPad simulation. Meaning I wasn't able to get an iPad, get my hands on it, turn the developer mode on, and then install a beta on there so we could see how students interacted with it. Instead, it was just us using my computer as a simulation and then going off of that. As well as we weren't able to get it in the App Store. So part of our sponsor, excuse me, she was kind of behind the ball on the implementation steps of getting this thing in practice. So we weren't able to see it at the App Store or see the students use it. But in the future, we have it set up so that they can take what we did and then further apply it. And then as the nursing program progresses and as they change curriculum and whatever, updates will be required. So as you saw earlier with the instructor mode, it should be somewhat easy to make adjustments. Behind the scene of that list is a database, just a quick little list adjustable. But other than that, it should be quite seamless for them.
Yeah, so finishing touches as we are done this semester. We just kind of have a couple little things to button up, and that's going to be laser cutting and our handoff package. Kind of alluding with that handoff package, as you guys heard, do not implement the app, so we are getting ready to give it to them to implement once IT says yes. But that laser cutting, so with that organization system, the nursing department is implementing that already. And so with that, they need some dividers. They are trying to use cardboard in their carts, but currently when you touch that, it moves, your meds get mixed up then, and the cardboard wears down. So we're we're cutting out some dividers for them to stick into one of the carts and walls. And with that, it is way cheaper for us to cut it here on campus with laser in our architecture, mathematics, and engineering hall, versus ordering it. Our material only costs about $95. However, cutting it by order is going to cost upwards of $300. So saving quite a bit of money there for our nursing department, and then it allows them to get that material quicker, so then they can start putting their meds organized with nice dividers versus the cardboard there. And then some quantities on those is 27, 17, and 21. So we have quite a few dividers that we're cutting out, so it's quite a bit of material, which is fine.
For the handoff package, so a couple different steps of a full app integration would be the graphic design, the user interface and user experience implementation through the code, and then the backend implementation. So what we can do in setting it up for whatever SDSU chooses, or whoever SDSU chooses to implement it, is we can do the wireframes on a software called Figma. And with that, they can take essentially the entire layout of the app and then quick code it so that not only does it save them time, but it also saves the company a lot of money, or saves SDSU a lot of money. And then the cart organization system, the iPad application setup, models and animations. This is all stuff that saves them a lot of time down the road. And then the time study data and the drawer dividers. The time study data is just a sort of a display selling the idea that we would need this. And then the drawer dividers is just something that would be used to help the nursing simulation down the road.
There's a little bit more on the handoff package. Part of the reason why we are doing a handoff package is it wasn't until the end of last semester that IT fully said no to implementing an app. But our nursing department was very in agreement with us that we did want to continue with that app that they felt was the best solution. They already have iPads, so they are hoping to be able to implement that in the future once they can get IT to say yes. So that has caused us to do a handoff package instead of a full implementation, which is why we pivoted just this semester. Any questions?
When it comes to the drawer dividers, in the future, if any break or they need more dividers, will they have to order those?
Yeah, so there's a company they can order them for, but we're gonna give them like all the drawings and models of those. So that way they could get those cut, like they could send those out to post. If they want them or potentially reach back out to like to have those cut. So that will be in the handoff package, but yeah, if they were to break, they would have to order more and get more that way. We kind of agreed in the numbers that we gave them because that's how many they wanted for their part, plus a couple extra in case that happened. But there's not a lot of aggression in those parts when they're grabbing the meds, so hopefully they won't.
Yeah, they're currently using cardboard. But,
Yeah, cardboard's not working too well. Any other questions, guys?
I might have missed this, but what was the reason that IT wouldn't let you implement your own app?
So I actually helped Alyssa out, which is our sponsor, by the way, with a couple steps. But IT has a very long process of doing things, and you have to submit a request and then go through the whole process of like why and how, and then it's the implementation process. So the request alone would have taken a couple months, and we did that in spring, and I essentially did it for him. And yeah, we were just very behind the ball on that because even to get an app itself implemented into the nursing program would have been a long time. And then they never had anything where a student does it. So they were really sketchy, I'll say, about that. So.
Yeah, they were really unsure about it, especially like once we hand that off. Obviously, it's an app that doesn't take a lot of change. There's not any personal data, anything like that on there, so it's not something that we're not really like getting into the app. But IT was still concerned with that and worried about like it needing updates with time and us not being here to provide those updates. So that's also part of the reason why they said no, which we did provide some solutions with health firms, program also runs its own apps and that. But IT department is still pretty hesitant, so they would want to wait and just get back.
Our sponsor is pretty confident that it would. It's just a matter of.
What was your guys' budget again for this project?
So our total budget was $1,000, but we ended up not needing any of that budget minus the dividers, which was only 100. So we only used 10% of our budget.
That's awesome. Did you ever like consider chasing the automation process with your remaining money?
We kind of looked into it a little bit, but based on what
Any others?
For that productivity increase for them, how do you and efficiency, how do you see them using that? Just shorter labs so the students get out early and teacher goes home early, or what's your vision, or what is their benefit with that?
So when we were in there, we saw one simulation. And we think with this, we could get a whole other simulation in there. And then even then, if students need to stay extra because they're not confident, they can do it all. Especially if they just wanted to focus strictly on it.
So they get more, they can do multiple things instead of only once.
Yes. Or add more solutions. That's